Ground ivy, Glechoma hederacea. Let's talk about it. We're going to talk about uses, identification, and harvest. But to get you a little bit excited, let's talk about uses first. Before we do that, just a quick disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only, and you are responsible for anything that you do with this plant in terms of edible or medicinal uses. I'm not a doctor or a master herbalist, so make sure to consult them before you do anything with this plant, and always make sure that you properly identify it before using it. Okay, let's talk about the fun stuff now. So this plant has both edible and medicinal uses, and we'll talk about edible first. The way that I use most often is as I'm going by, I will pick it and eat it raw, or I will pick it to use later as a salad green, also raw. The flavor is minty, a little bit peppery, and has also a hint of pine in it as well. For some people, it's a little bit too strong, so they won't use it raw, but instead they'll use it as a pot herb and also get just a mild amount of that flavor. Now, beyond edible uses, this plant has a lot of medicinal uses. And in my opinion, that's where it really shines. In fact, in Europe, where it's native, it has a history of being used medicinally for over 1,000 years. In general, it's supportive to your respiratory, your liver, kidneys, and sinus systems. Scientific studies have shown that it has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties. And further studies have shown that it has about 168 micrograms per gram of ascorbic acid, vitamin C. It also has about 4 milligrams per gram of tocopherols. We know that as vitamin E. Furthermore, it has phenols, which most people know of as antioxidants. So I'm most interested in using this plant medicinally for its support of the respiratory and sinus systems. Now, these are two things that are most often compromised when it comes to seasonal allergies, something that I definitely deal with in the springtime, which can be really frustrating for someone who likes to go outside and forage all the time. Now, if you want to use this plant medicinally, there's two main things that you can do. The first one is that you can gather it and then dry it for use as a tea. It also helps with preserving it. One more thing that you can do to use the herb both medicinally and preserve it is by making a tincture. I would recommend the folk method, which is something that we won't get into in detail in this video, but I will link in the description. So now hopefully you're excited about all of the different uses of this plant. And I want to tell you about how to identify it so you can make sure that you have the right one. So I'm in my friend's yard right now because they have ground ivy everywhere. I'm very jealous of them, but there's plenty of specimens here to identify. So this is ground ivy, and there's a couple of ways that we can identify it. The first thing to know about it is that it is in the mint family. That means that it does have that classic square stem and hairy stem. Let's take a look at the leaves. The growth of the leaves is opposite. The shape is heart-shaped, the leaves are simple, and the edges are scalloped. Be aware that the color can be from dark green to even slightly purplish in tint. Okay, now let's talk about the flower. There's one right here. So this is where people will misidentify it for henbit or dead nettle because the flower looks very similar to those two. So the flower has a lavender to pinkish color. It has a funnel shape. It grows in bilateral symmetry and grows in clusters of 1 to 3. Now, this plant really likes moist and shady soil. And that makes sense because there's actually usually a trampoline right here where it gets plenty of shade. But that's something to be aware of for where it grows. In terms of its range, all over North America. You'll find it from New York all the way to California. So it's a plant that all of us, all across North America, can use. In terms of harvesting, all you have to do is pick the leaves. And the flower is useful too, so you don't have to worry about filtering those out. The one thing to caution is to make sure that you're not picking other plants because there are certainly a lot of them growing around and getting those mixed up with your ground ivy. Okay, that's everything that we had to talk about in this video. So if you liked that video and you're excited to see more, be sure to subscribe so you can be notified about it. Like the video if you liked it, share it with your friends so they can see it too. I will see you in the next video, and until then, keep foraging.